Okay, I think it's working. I got a new photo booth thing. Look, it does all this stuff. Woo! 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 Okay, way back to the story. So, Chapter 6, The Giants. But if you're so nice and friendly, Sophie said, then why did you snatch me from my bed and run away with me? Because you saw me, the big friendly giant answered. If anyone is seeing a giant, he or she must be taken away Ipswich. Why? Asked Sophie. Well, first of all, said the BFG, human beings is not really believing in giants, is they? Human beings is not thinking we is existing. I do, Sophie said. Ah, but that is only because you has seen me, cried the BFG. I cannot possibly allow anyone, even little girls, to be seeing me and staying at home. The first thing you would be doing, you'd be scuttling around and yodeling the news that you was actually seeing a giant, and then the great giant hunt, the mighty giant look-see, would be starting up all over the world, with human beings all rummaging for the great giant you saw and getting wildly excited. People would be coming rushing and bushing after me with goodness knows what, and they would be catching me and locking me into a cage to be stared at. They would be putting me in the zoo or in the bumpkin house with all the squiggly hippoly dumplings and crocodile dillios. Sophie knew that what the giant said was true. If any person reported actually having seen a giant haunting the streets of town at night, there would most certainly be a terrific hullabaloo across the world. I will bet you, the BFG said, that you would have been splashed in the news all over the great wide wonky world, wouldn't you, if I hadn't wiggled you away? I suppose I would, Sophie said. And that would never do, said the BFG. So what will happen to me now? Sophie asked. If you do go back, you will be telling the world, said the BFG. Most likely on the telly buncombe box and on the radio squeaker. And so you will just have to be staying here with me for the rest of your life. Oh, no, cried Sophie. Oh, yes, said the BFG, but I am warning you not to ever go whiffling about this cave without I is with you, or you will be coming to an mucky end. I is showing you now who is going to eat you up if they is ever catching one tiny little glimpse of you. The big friendly giant picked Sophie up off the table and carried her to the cave entrance. He rolled the huge stone to one side and said, Peep over there, little girl, and tell me what you is seeing. Sophie, sitting on the BFG's hand, peeped out of the cave. The sun was up now, and shining fiery hot over the great yellow wasteland with its blue rocks and its dead trees. Is you seeing them? The BFG asked. Sophie, squinting through the glare of the sun, saw several tremendous tall figures moving around the rocks about 500 yards away. 3 or 4 others were sitting quite motionless on the rocks themselves. This is giant country, the BFG said. Those is all giants, every one. It was a brain-boggling sight. The giants were all naked except for a sort of short skirt round their waists, and their skin was burnt by the sun. But it was the sheer size of them that boggled Sophie most of all. They were simply colossal, far taller and wider than the big friendly giant upon whose hand she was now sitting. And how ugly they were! Many of them had large bellies. All of them had long arms and feet. They were too far away for their faces to be seen clearly, but perhaps that was a good thing. What on earth are they doing? Sophie asked. Nothing, said the BFG. They is just moochling and foochling around and waiting for the night to come. And then they will be all galloping off for the places, off to where peoples is living to find their suppers. You mean to Turkey? Sophie asked. Bone Crunching Giant will be galloping off to Turkey, of course, said the BFG, but the others will be whiffling off to all sorts of flung-away places, like Wellington for the booty flavour and Panama for the hattie taste. Every giant is having his own very favourite hunting ground. Do they ever go to England? Sophie asked. Often, said the BFG. They said that English is tasting ever so wonderfully of crod-scallop. I'm not quite sure what that means, Sophie said. Meanings is not important, said the BFG. I cannot be right all the time. Quite often I is left instead of right. And all those beastly giants over there are really going off again tonight to eat people? All of them is guzzling human beings every night, the BFG answered. All of them excepting me. That is why you will be coming to an ucky-mucky end if any of them will ever be getting his gogglers upon you. You would be swallowed up like a big piece of frumpkin pie, all in one dollop. But eating people is horrible, Sophie cried. It's frightful. Why doesn't someone stop them? And who, please, is going to be stopping them? Asked the BFG. Couldn't you? Said Sophie. Never in a pig's whistle, cried the BFG. All of those man-eating giants is enormous and very fierce. They is at least 2 times my wideness and double my royal highness. Twice as high as you, cried Sophie. Here's BFG and Sophie. Easily that, said the BFG. You is seeing them in the distance, but just wait until you is seeing them up close. Those giants is at least 50 feet tall, with huge muscles, and cockles alive-o. I is the titchy one. I is the runt. 24 feet is puddle nuts in giant country. Well, you mustn't feel bad about it, Sophie said. I think you're just great. Why, even your toes must be as big as sausages. Bigger, said the BFG, looking rather pleased. Is as big as Bumplehammers. How many giants are out there? Sophie asked. 9 altogether, said the BFG. And also, year 4, just as a side note, so if they're 50 foot tall, the big giants, so I'm about 5 foot tall, 5 times 10 is 50, so it'd be 10 of me stacked on top of each other. That's how tall they are. And the BFG is 24 feet high, so Mr. Marley's 6 feet. 6 times what is 24? Ooh, that's so 4 Mr. Marleys standing on top of each other. That's the height of the BFG. Right, back to the book. That means, said Sophie, that somewhere in the world, every single night, 9 wretched people get carried away and eaten alive? More, said the BFG. It is all dependent, you see, on how big the human being is. Japanese beans is very small, so a giant will gobble up 6 Japanese before he is feeling full up. Others, like the Norway people and the Yankee Doodle Doos, is ever so much bigger, and usually 2 of 3 of them is making a good tuck-in. But do these disgusting giants go to every single country in the world? All countries, except in Greece, is getting visited at some time or another, the BFG answered. The country which a giant is visiting is dependent on how he is feeling. If it is very warm weather, and a giant is feeling as hot as a sizzle pan, he will probably go galloping up to the Frisbee North to get himself an Esquimau or 2 to cool him down, like a lovely ice cream lolly to you. Oof, I'll take your word for it, Sophie said. And then again, if it is a frosty night, and the giant is frigiling with cold, he will probably point his nose towards the sweltering hot lands and guzzle a few Hottentots to warm him up. How perfectly horrible, Sophie said. Nothing is as hot to a cold giant like a hot Hottentot, the BFG said. If you were to put me down on the ground, and I were to walk out among them now, Sophie said, would they really eat me? Like a whiffle-squiddle, cried the BFG, and what is more, you is so small they would not even be chewing you. The first one to be seeing you would pick you up in his fingers and drop you down like a drop of drain water. Ooh, let's go back inside, Sophie says. I hate even watching them. That is the end of that chapter, and the next one is called The Marvelous Ears, which I shall read to you on Monday. Have a lovely and safe weekend. Year 4, stay inside, stay safe and stay well. If you do go out for a walk or for some exercise, make sure that you're staying 2 meters away from people and listen to your adults. Do whatever they say because they're smart and wonderful just like you. I'll see you on Monday. Bye.